There are moments that never really leave you, words that echo louder the older you get. I used to think time would fade them, that memories, like old photographs, would eventually lose their color. But some moments, some people leave a mark that even time can't wash away. If you've ever carried someone's voice in your heart, long after they were gone, stay with me. And if you believe that wisdom can outlive the one who shared it, subscribe to the Tales Beyond Word for more motivation and healing. And let this story remind you why some advice is meant to change everything. I met him when I was 21. A restless, impatient version of myself who thought the world owed him something just for showing up. Back then, I wanted success, recognition, the kind of life that made people look twice. And then there was him, my mentor, an older man who carried silence like it was wisdom itself. He was the kind of person who didn't need to say much to make you listen. He owned a small workshop at the edge of town, a quiet, dusty place where wood met meaning. He made things by hand, chairs, tables, and sometimes, when he felt generous, lessons disguised as stories. I started working for him because I needed money, but I stayed because I needed meaning. He never lectured. He just observed. And whenever I complained about money, people, or how unfair life was, he'd give me that half smile of his and say, "Life doesn't get easier when you rush through it, son. It gets emptier." At the time, I thought it was just another one of his calm old man phrases. Something people say when they've already lived their best years. So I nodded, pretended to understand, and went back to chasing the next thing, the next big moment, the next shortcut to success. But years later, those words came back to haunt me. The last day I saw him, it was raining. He was sitting outside his shop, a cup of tea growing cold beside him. He looked tired but peaceful. I remember asking him if he'd ever regretted not doing more with his life, not building something bigger. He smiled that same patient smile and said, "Bigger isn't always better. Sometimes all we need is to build something that lasts inside us." He paused, watching the rain hit the ground like it was washing something away. Then he said, "One day, you'll understand that success isn't what the world sees. It's what stays when the noise fades." That was the last advice he ever gave me. 3 days later, he was gone. For a long time, I didn't go back to that workshop. I didn't want to see it without him there. I left town, got a job, moved from one city to another, chasing everything he told me not to. Money, applause, approval. And for a while, I got it. But I also lost something along the way. I don't remember exactly when the cracks began to show. Maybe it was when I started waking up tired, even after sleep. Or when the mirror stopped reflecting someone I recognized. Everything I'd built felt heavy, a collection of things that looked like success but didn't feel like it. I kept hearing his words in my head. Success isn't what the world sees. It's what stays when the noise fades. The noise. God, there was so much noise. Deadlines, expectations, comparisons. I thought I was moving forward, but I was only running in circles, faster and faster, until one day I broke. I remember sitting alone in my apartment, surrounded by everything I thought I wanted, trophies, gadgets, designer suits. But the silence was deafening. That's when I decided to take a break. I didn't know where to go, so I drove, and somehow I ended up back at that old town. The workshop was still there, worn down, half forgotten but standing. The sign was faded, the tools covered in dust. And when I stepped inside, it felt like stepping into a memory that had been waiting for me. On the workbench, I found something I hadn't noticed before, a small piece of wood with words carved into it. It said, "Build what outlives you." I stared at it for a long time. Those 4 words hit harder than any advice I'd ever heard. Because suddenly I realized I'd spent years building things that wouldn't. Career, status, approval. All temporary, all noise. But he had built something that lasted. Not a company. Not wealth. Just people. He built me. That day, I stayed in the workshop until the evening. I cleaned the dust off his old tools, repaired a chair he never finished, and sat quietly as the light faded. For the first time in years, I wasn't in a hurry. And in that stillness, I could almost hear him, not in memory but in spirit. He used to say that everyone leaves behind two legacies. One that people remember with their minds, and another that they feel in their hearts. I used to think legacy was something you leave when you die. But now I know it's something you live while you're still here. That evening, I made a decision. I quit my job a week later, sold my apartment, and reopened his workshop, not for money but for meaning. I started teaching others, kids, strangers, anyone who wanted to learn how to make things. Not just furniture but patience, discipline, stillness. And every time someone walked in, frustrated or lost, I'd tell them what he once told me. Bigger isn't always better. Build something that lasts inside you. Years have passed now. And sometimes, when I lock up the shop at night, I look at that wooden carving and smile. It feels like he's still here, watching, quietly proud. And I finally understand why he lived the way he did. He wasn't chasing life. He was shaping it. It's strange, isn't it? How the smallest advice can take years to bloom. How the right words from the right person can change everything, not in a moment, but over a lifetime. If I could see him one more time, I wouldn't ask for more lessons. I'd just say thank you for teaching me that peace doesn't come from what you earn. It comes from what you learn to let go of. So if you're listening to this right now, rushing, comparing, searching for meaning in noise, maybe slow down. Maybe look for what still feels true when the applause fades. Because sometimes, the greatest success is living a life that feels like your own. And if this story touched a quiet part of your heart, maybe your next healing begins here, waiting softly, beyond the words on the tales beyond word. Subscribe for more motivation and healing, and keep listening for the wisdom that never leaves.